November 2017, BlizzCon. Blizzard announces World of Warcraft Classic, and fans of vanilla around the world flooded Warcraft Twitch streams with happy Pepe emotes. In between that point and the end of August 2019, Blizzard deployed a crack team of foreign exchange students to make this game a reality. 2 years was spent porting a game that they had already made to work on their new server hardware. During the second half of this period, the creme de la creme of vanilla Warcraft streamers took part in a closed beta test. Their mission was to test the game and report the bugs back to Blizzard. Thankfully, they did a great job of this and every bug was found, and they didn't just use the beta test as free content for their channels.
Fishing is broken.
Bruh.
Feign death is back.
Bruh.
Oh
Bruh.
my god, fix Spanish.
Bruh.
Wire hunters broke mining levels under the map.
After this, Blizzard allowed people with active subscriptions to Battle for Azeroth to test Classic. This managed to bring in some of the greatest Warcraft players into the fold. The only problem Blizzard had now was how to gauge the amount of interest for this game and deploy the right amount of realms for the players. The issue was that there was literally no way for them to find out if Classic was going to be any more popular than Battle for Azeroth, so they were in the dark. Even when they opened their login servers for people to reserve their character names 2 weeks before launch, there was no way of telling if this game was going to be popular or not. I'm assuming some sort of hideous beast was blocking them from accessing the server log files, and that checking how many new subscriptions would have required some sort of act of God. However, none of this mattered because Blizzard had implemented realm layering. This meant we'd all get a smooth launch and no queues. It was now time. We waited on the login screen, and this is where our story begins. So here we are in Northshire Valley on the Hydraxian Waterlord's realm, and goddamn there's a lot of people here. After making a few changes to my game settings, we're off. I grabbed the first quest, then the second, and while everyone heads north to where most of the mobs are, like a true pro, I head south instead, so I can pretty much go unchallenged for mob tagging. My plan fell apart within mere seconds though, as it became apparent that the realm is suffering unplayable levels of lag. Blizzard's great plan of having layering to ensure a smooth launch no matter how large the player numbers had simply not worked at all. The sliding dead body was the red flag that I needed to get away from the starting area, to see if the game would improve if I'm away from the masses. The next quest hub after the starting zone is Goldshire. I assume that anyone that had worked out that getting away from the starting area would be a good idea would go to Goldshire next. As I'm a grand master of this game, I'm 2 steps ahead. So instead of Goldshire, I headed for Stormwind, with the intent of doing the wine advert and sewing quests that were available at level 1.
Sometimes my genius is... it's almost frightening.
Obviously my plan worked. While the plebs were stuck in the starting zone and Goldshire, I was able to play with 0 lag in Stormwind. I did my quest just fine. There was just one minor issue with my foolproof plan. There's not a lot of quests that actually do in Stormwind. So this meant leaving the city gates and grinding some mobs. However, this was not to be. Just yards away from the city entrance and the lag began again. This is due to the technology driving the game. You see, the different areas are like, in essence, different instances. Stormwind is one instance, the Elwyn Forest is another, and Westfall is yet another instance. The Stormwind instance was running fine, as there were very few people with brains as large as mine who knew to go there first. But no matter where I went in the Elwyn Forest, it was unplayable. Outside of a few critters at the city gates, no mobs actually showed up on the screen for me, so a mob grind was impossible. The truth was, what was happening soon became apparent. I was running through the forest, and then all of a sudden I walked back to the entrance of Stormwind with the error "transfer aborted, instance not found." What this actually meant was when I tried to leave the Stormwind instance, the game never actually loaded the Elwyn Forest instance. So all the server side data like NPCs, mobs and interactive game objects didn't load. I was only seeing the data that was saved inside the game client point at my end. Basically, I was stuck inside Stormwind. I tried to bypass the forest altogether and enter the west, for instance, but this was no good either. In the end, I took off my trousers and spoke to Hamster Will to see how his realm was going. He seemed to be having a lot more luck than me, and by this point people were flooding into Stormwind and making that instance run terrible too. Then all of a sudden the game brought me back to the starting area where everyone was stuck. It was clear layering had not worked out and I was not going to get anywhere tonight, so I called it quits and went to bed. When I returned the next evening, the lag had gone and the game was working fine, so now it was actually time to begin playing. Well, I thought it was fine, but during the Wineyard quest, I managed to get the combat bug, which every private server player knows that when you are flagged in combat even though there are no mobs actually attacking you. I soon left the starting area and headed out to Goldshear, where I picked up my fishing skill and gave it a go. Even though I had no issues with fishing, it seems that at higher levels there are some big problems with no fish actually appearing for hours on end. I used my fish to skill up my cooking, which is the pro way to do it, as you get to skill up both professions at the same time for the minimum amount of cost and time. Talking about time, a lot of people were talking about how bad their queues were. On my RP realm, this is not something I had to deal with, but I took a look over at one of the PvP realms and
by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't. Rolling Star!
The joy of finding a 6-slot bag at level 6 is something that BFA just can't replicate. Anyway, as you can see, I was in the Fargo Deep Mine by this point and was getting on with those quests. I was taking my time and going slowly, as well as rather enjoying myself actually. All those years of playing various servers meant I know how to keep on top of my money while getting the most up-to-date abilities and professions. Professions like mining and blacksmithing meant, as well as having a steady supply of money coming in, I had decent gear to wear too. At first, I thought the decent gear was actually giving me the edge over the mobs, but actually, I think the game just felt easier than the private servers I was used to. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but Classic just felt easier than all the vanilla servers I've played over the years. So I ran a few tests. Same gear, same skills, same mobs, same class. Each time Classic came up easier than a private server core. To Classic, and I made a complete tit of myself. Someone said that fishing was bugged in Ironforge, so I went to take a look. I tried to cast, but the guy was right. Fishing didn't work, and it was an entire 2 minutes before I remembered that in vanilla you can't actually fish here. Dickheads. By day 4, I was on the eastern side of the forest gathering logs. While I was over this side, I had a look at the Mount Trainer and Mount Vendor NPCs at the logging camp. I was utterly disgusted with what I saw. The 100% speed mounts that you buy are the armoured versions, and not the original recoloured plain epic mounts from the first vanilla patch. For those that have no idea what I'm on about, when vanilla first released, the epic 100% mounts didn't have armour. Here you can see me riding one of those horses. In a later patch in vanilla, Blizzard removed the unarmoured epic mounts from the vendor and replaced them with epic armoured mounts. They even added a way of trading in the unarmoured mounts for the new armoured ones. But if you held on to your original unarmoured early vanilla mount until Wrath of the Lich King, you'd earn a special feat of strength called Old School Ride. But Blizzard have said officially that the that unarmoured mounts won't be added into the game. So if you were hoping for Blizzard to continue Classic from vanilla through the Burning Crusade and then into Wrath of the Lich King, you will not be getting that feat of strength. Well, that's what they claim. But I have a feeling that there will be a way to get the unarmoured mounts back into Classic. Outside of that, by level 10 I was crafting my own green quality items and crushing murlocs and having a great time doing so. I didn't expect to enjoy playing vanilla as much as this, as I've played so much before, but playing with this many people on a server that I knew was 100% still gonna be here however many months from now made my progression feel that it had that much more weight behind it. Lackluster private servers in the past have managed to be carried by a large player base. Emerald Dream circa 2012 is a great example of a vanilla server that was quite buggy but still fun because it had a lot of people. But this is Warcraft Classic and it has a lot of people, and when compared to most private servers it has very few bugs, so I was really enjoying my time playing. I was in Westfall by this point, and because there was a ton of people everywhere killing all the mobs, certain quests like getting the watch from the cupboard and the compass from the ruined house were as easy as walking up and taking them. But while I was piss farting around with add-ons and playing Peggle on the Fargo Deep Mine, a fellow European guild called Apes, who were big in the private server scene, scored the world first Molten Core and Elixir victories, beating everyone that was featured on Method's stream event called Race to World First. It wasn't a surprise to me, as I correctly predicted a private server guild would demolish all the retail players that attempted it, but it was a surprise to this guy. Mark my words, within 2 weeks of release, all the raid content in Classic will be beaten. I'm not joking around.
Yeah.
Thousands of very organised players who have played this one version of Warcraft for years are going to come crashing into Classic and utterly tear through the content. These Battle for Alliance streamers who think they're the dog's bollocks are going to be left for dust by tons of players and guilds they've never even heard of. It will be glorious. With all the
I really don't think that's going to happen.
I'll come back to Apes in a while, because what they had to say about the quality of raiding on Classic is very interesting. But for now, let's get back to what I saw. Blizzard introduced far more realms by this point, so it was actually possible for anyone not on Hydraxian Waterlords to actually log in. I had been testing pathing and found no issues, but others did.
This escort or no? No. I'm gonna hearth to WCL shit.
I gotta send you guys this clip.
But it was around this point that some issues did start cropping up. The first being that there was a request stop button while flying. This is hardly a game breaker, and it's just adding a feature from later on in Warcraft's life. But that wasn't actually in vanilla. They're not even using the original vanilla 1.1 flying system anyway. There is a graphical effect that is found in Retail WoW that highlights certain items in your bag if you press Control on your keyboard. Pretty sure this is some sort of glitch, as it only ever highlights the last item in your first bag and serves no actual purpose in this version. You can move items around in your bag while you are dead. This is not something you should be able to do in vanilla. You should get the prompt saying that you can't do that while you're dead. There is a fair few nodes in Westfall that are actually under the map and can't be mined. This one on the mini-map here shows that the node is lit up like it's here, and it's not grey. That would indicate that it's in the cave below. When you go to the spot, it's not there. When you go to the same spot in the cave below, it's not there either. Campfires do no damage. They should. In fact, campfires were not nerfed until Wrath the Lich King pre-patch, as you can see on these patch notes here. There are areas that have bodies of water with graphical glitches, like here in Thunder Falls. I saw this and wondered just what on earth was going on. But the one that actually annoyed me was the ticket system. It's utter toilet on Classic and is actually much worse than on private servers. On a private server, you just open the help tab, open a ticket, type your message, press send, and then wait for a reply. On Classic, you find the ticket section in the help tab. You type your question, you press send, and then the icon on the send button looks like it's sending or buffering or whatever. Nothing happens. It never actually sends the ticket to the GM. I know it never sends it because I sat there for 15 minutes watching it not do anything. To wrap up what else I did, I'll quickly zoom through it now. I tanked a successful group through the dead mines. I also did the stockades, but the first time I tried the dungeon, it just hung on the loading screen. I explored quite a bit of the world on my way to learn the higher professions and weapon skills. I also did my classic benchmark, the attack. I had to wait a while as there was quite a few people also doing it at the same time as me, but when I did do it, everything went off without a hitch. Perfect scripting. Well done, Blizzard. So what we have here is a very enjoyable version of vanilla World of Warcraft. I had a lot of fun playing it, as I'm sure many others are too, but I did find parts a bit weird. So the talent and spells are from the 1.12.1 versions, so at no point are priests going to need holy candles to cast Power Word Fortitude like they did in patch 1.1. But for some reason, players don't have the keyring that was added in patch 1.11. So keys will just go in your bag. The party finder system added in patch 1.5 is not actually in the game, but the innkeeper dialogue for it is. So for those people that don't know this, vanilla Warcraft actually had an automatic party grouping system added halfway through its release. As you can see on screen now, you'd walk up to an innkeeper and you could enter a party queue for a certain local dungeon. You could also do this for a dungeon by walking up to a meeting stone for that dungeon and clicking on it. The text information associated with the party system appears in Classic, although the actual option to enter a party queue is not there yet. Perhaps they'll add that in a later phase. I just find it strange that the things that have the largest impact on the game, which are the spells and the abilities, you get the buffed versions of those right from the start, but the minor quality of life changes are being held back. Now, I know many of you will want to know about the end game content here. Instead of holding this video back by about 6 months, I thought I'll just play the words of the first guild to beat both game raids. That's obviously the EU guild Apes. This clip is from XN, a member of Apes, who was asked if he liked the coding on Classic, and his reply compares it to Nostarius.
You like the coding here? Gotta be honest, I gotta be honest. Lost core coding beats classic code. True story. Sad but true. The amount of bugs we've encountered on our way to 60, I've lost count. The amount of weird mechanics that we've encountered, I've lost count. The amount of weird types of either overpoweredness or underpoweredness of some things we thought were, different. I don't know. The whole game feels weird, even though it's the same game.
The next clip is from another member of Apes called Monkey News. He is asked on stream if he preferred private servers to classic.
Did you prefer private servers to this? Yeah, of course. Of course. Classic is pretty shit. If this was a new private server that released, it would be, like very average, an average server. Obviously the scripting's great, and it looks good and everything, blah blah blah. But they've added some really shit.
So at the end of the day, what do we have here? We have an official vanilla server that is well populated and plays well. For lots of people, Classic is going to provide them with the vanilla experience they are looking for, and they will have a great time playing Blizzard server. If you are a veteran of the vanilla private server scene, Classic is going to feel a bit easy. A lot of us have been playing private servers and are quite used to them now. When you go from something like Kronos to then playing Classic, you can clearly tell that Blizzard's official server is easier. You can argue all day that this is how it's meant to be, but that doesn't change the fact that a lot of people are now used to a harder version of this game and will piss straight through Classic. I'll let you argue that out in the comments though. I'll see you all soon. Bye.